everyone, my name is Clay, and welcome to another Nerdy Moment review. Today, I hope you will spend some time with me as I discuss a game that may have single-handedly rekindled my interest in classic-style JRPGs. As beyond Xenoblade Chronicles 2, which is not a classic-style JRPG at all, I haven't really found any games in this genre that have interested me really until now. That game is Dragon Quest XI, Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. Admittedly, I am mostly a stranger to the Dragon Quest series, having only played one on the original NES as a child, and I don't even remember which one that was, and then trying to play both Dragon Quest VII and VIII, neither of which stuck with me at all. However, with 2021 being a year of hopefully new beginnings, and my interest in JRPGs in general having been partially rekindled by YouTubers like Super Derek RPGs and Lady Pelvic Gaming, I decided to give a look to see if Dragon Quest XI, which has an extensive demo, could grab me. I spent New Year's Day playing the demo. Completing the demo took me about 6.5 hours. I then immediately bought the full game the instant I was finished with the demo, and then kept going that very night and throughout the entire weekend. Dragon Quest XI is something unique, a mix of the old and new, classic JRPG stylings and story with updates and modernizations to their formula that help bring someone like me back into the JRPG fold. The story itself starts pretty simply. You are the hero, who you get to name. And the game starts with you and your childhood friend Gemma getting ready to climb the Cobblestone Tor to do a coming-of-age ceremony and be considered adults. However, monsters seem to have infested the Tor, and the hero ends up activating a strange power to save Gemma from a giant bird. From there, the townspeople reveal that the hero was adopted and appears to be the reincarnation of the legendary Luminary, a hero of light destined to banish the darkness. Things don't go well however, as the kingdom the hero is from decides that he is in fact the Darkspawn and start trying to kill him to prevent darkness from flooding the world. From there, you go on a world-spanning quest trying to evade the kingdom's forces and find out just what your destiny is, as well as trying to stop the Dark One. And honestly, the story is kind of a trope. The Chosen One versus the forces of darkness, and early on it didn't really grab me. It was the characters, the world, and the smaller stories that you encounter in each town and area that grabbed me more than anything. Characters like Eric and Sylvando drew me in, and stories like helping a prince of a nation prove he can be a knight, or helping a mage rescue her sister made me interested in exploring the world and seeing what I could find. However, the end of Act 1 is where the full story really took off, and from there I knew I had to play the game to the point of the true ending, making sure the world itself was okay, and that my companions has the best ending possible for each of them. And what a world it is, really. Sure, Dragon Quest XI may not be the most graphically intensive game, and supposedly the Definitive Edition is a downgrade visually, but I couldn't tell. The world is vibrant, colorful, and the designs by Akira Toriyama, of Dragon Ball fame, are rendered fantastically in 3D. I've got some issues with the UI at times, specifically how the inventory system looks and works and the menus, but the visual presentation beyond that is top-notch. The world generally feels lived in, and each area is fun to explore with a surprising amount of verticality to it. Also, combat and the various attacks and enemies all have a great look and feel to them. When you crit with an attack, you see it, you feel it, you hear it. It's great stuff. In addition to the fully 3D mode, there is also an optional 2D mode, if you prefer to play it in a more classic visual style. And that mode looks pretty damn good as well. Combat in this mode, however, is a bit slower, as it's more traditionally Dragon Quest-y, where you only see the enemy sprites and menus, but if this is your jam, it's here and it's available to use. Personally, I stuck to 3D mode pretty much exclusively. There is also a good chunk of voice acting in this game, and it's all great. Sadly, the game is not fully voice acted, only cutscenes, combat, and the occasional quips during party talk involve voices, but the US voices, which is how I played, are fantastic. Although the main character is a silent protagonist other than some occasional noises, which is whatever. Further, the music is really good until you get tired of it. Sadly, there only seems to be one theme for each thing. One overworld theme, one general combat theme, one boss theme, and one theme for most towns. and with the amount of grinding you need to do, it will get annoying eventually. Thankfully, you can adjust the individual volumes in the options menu, and for grinding towards the end of the game, I had to do that. I basically just pulled everything down to 0 and put on my own soundtrack. Thankfully, you can also switch the soundtrack in the Definitive Edition to Dragon Quest VIII music, but that does not apply to combat. And there's also a switch from symphonic, so, full symphony, to synthetic MIDI, which is nice if you want the variety. I ended up doing that as well for a bit just as a change of pace, but by the end of my 72-hour playthrough, I basically just had my own soundtrack from YouTube. Now, as far as gameplay goes, you really have two modes of play outside of the various minigames. You got world exploration and combat. Let's get the minigames real quick out of the way. There's a horse racing minigame, a couple of casinos, that's really it. There's also a village called Talkington in the Definitive Edition you can visit. And that requires you to find these toggles out in the world to get passwords to let you visit past Dragon Quest games, new little mini-quests in there. There's also a ton of side quests you can obtain from people with purple exclamation points over their head as well. Exploration itself is pretty straightforward. You traverse the world on either foot, by horse, and eventually by a boat or by air. Enemies are visible on screen, and you can start combat by just running into them or hitting them with your sword. There are no random encounters here. Further, you can sometimes find monster mounts. They sparkle on the main screen, and once you defeat them, you can ride around on them. These mounts add things like flight, ramming, climbing walls, and other abilities that let you get access to areas you may not have been able to get to otherwise, and in some cases are required to progress in certain areas. You also get a couple of spells like Zoom, which lets you teleport to any campsite you have previously visited or any town that you've previously been to at any time, and Evac, which lets you instantly teleport back to the start of dungeons, both of which are incredibly useful and you will be making use of a lot. Now, as far as combat goes, it's a turn-based affair. Your party will face groups of monsters and take turns selecting actions based on their agility stat. There is no visible turn order marker or anything, so you never quite know who's gonna go next. Your characters can either attack, use spells, use abilities, use items that they have in their personal item bag, or switch out their equipment. One thing to note is that once you have more than 4 party members, you can actually freely switch characters out during the active battle. This does seem to set that new character's turn to the bottom of the turn order when you do it, but if you lose a character to an attack and you have a backup, you can at least replace them. As a note, dead characters don't get XP, but reserve characters do. Also, you can freely switch a character's equipment without losing a turn at all. So for instance, Eric can use daggers, swords, and boomerangs, and you might want to use daggers for one fight, and then for the next fight use boomerangs, and then maybe in that very same fight when you're using boomerangs on the next turn you want to switch out to swords, etc. It's very, very flexible. There are also combo moves or team moves called Pep Powers. A character can enter a pepped state at random during combat, sort of like a limit break if you're familiar with that. During their pepped up state, their stats are boosted, and if other characters are in the party, they might be able to use a pep move, which can vary greatly. These moves can just do damage, they can poison all enemies, they might even cause enemies to be replaced by other enemies. As a note, the pep status only ticks down if the character is active, meaning you can save the pep power state by either finishing the battle quickly or moving them to the reserve. Upon use of a combo move, everybody who had pep is immediately dropped out of pep state. There are a ton of pep powers to unlock as well, and to unlock them, well, you need to unlock nodes on each character's skill grid. Yes, I said skill grid. There is a level of customization I did not expect in this game. As your characters gain levels, they will gain an amount of SP, or skill points, and you can use these points on their character builder pane. I just call it a skill grid, personally. These grids will unlock things like new attacks, new spells, stat buffs for each character, and one unique thing you need to be aware of is that these grids change as you progress the story and play the game. Further, you can reset these grids at any goddess statue, allowing you to experiment with different setups for your party with just an investment of a small amount of gold. As a note though, you will not earn enough SP by level 99 to learn every single skill for a particular character without farming skill seeds. Oh, and there's also a crafting system as well as collectible outfits, and honestly some of the best equipment in the game is from the crafting system. I will admit I find the save point system a bit archaic. You have to visit those goddess statues to save at any time or visit a church, but thankfully with the zoom spell that I mentioned earlier, you can basically get to wherever you need to go to save. I spent a grand total of about 73 hours with Dragon Quest XI. I beat the first 2 acts, which are considered the main story, in about 55 hours. Act 3, where you get the true ending, took me, about another 18 hours? Give or take? Yeah, about 18. And to be honest, I loved every minute of my time with Dragon Quest XI. And after this, I am hungry for more JRPG goodness. Which is why, this year in 2021, I'm going to try to play and either review or do a first impression video on 5 more JRPGs. I'm not entirely certain which one is next, but I am excited nonetheless for this journey. If you love JRPGs, and you have not given this one a try, please do so. There's a demo available, and that demo covers a good chunk of the very opening of the game. Further still, if you complete the demo fully, you can import your save file into the full retail game and continue your progress directly, which is what I did. And you even get 3 skill seeds for doing so. Real quick, skill seeds, use them on a character and it gives them a free skill point. The game itself runs about $40 for the Definitive Edition, and it is well worth that price if you are even marginally interested in it. I heartily encourage you to check it out, because I am super glad that I did. As always, I want to thank you all so very much for watching. Please remember to like the video and share it with your friends, as it does help my channel grow. Be kind to each other, stay nerdy everybody, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, friends.